I'm Jeff on Teesville Thorpe. It's Tuesday.
Yes, only Tuesday.
So we have a whole bunch of new people listening to us. 7 a.m. Colorado on this Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. The show expanding, now syndicated from 710 KNUS up here in Denver down to 1460 AM and FM 101. The Answer in Colorado Springs, that's Colorado's two largest cities.
Yeah.
Now jumping in on the debate on the
nice.
Jeff and Bill Show. We are a right, left, center debate program. So you get to jump in, share your perspective. If you think one of us is wrong, the phone line is open. And the whole state now can pretty much hear you tell us how wrong we are.
Yeah, we've got a good
cathartic.
friend. We got a good friend of the show coming up here that oftentimes calls in and tells me how wrong I am. So brace yourself for that. That's coming up. And I love you, Joe from Arvada. This is fantastic. This is really that old school radio community where we have discussions about virtually everything and we come at it from all sides. We're tired of the talk radio that talks at you, that it's a bunch of speeches. How many times do you hear those other hosts really interact with the callers and spend time having conversations? That's not what we do. We want to have conversations with you. We want to include you in the conversation. And more importantly, we want to explore this from a bunch of different sides. Jeff is the rock-ribbed conservative, and I'm referred to as the Salem media problem child in the family, and I should. I'm on my own island ideologically and politically. I'm not part of either party, and I've been unaffiliated for more than 2 decades. I'm not new to this. I have been swimming against the current for a long time, and if you don't like what one of us is saying, wait a minute or two and the other one will chime in and I'm sure it'll be okay. But we do things differently. You're not going to find another show across the Colorado radio dial. I hesitate even to say probably the national radio dial that is going to do things that we do in the manner that we are. It's never going to be personal, but we will go and fight intellectually. But it's never about calling people names and getting angry. It's about that intellectual pugilism and looking at those ideas.
Sometimes we call each other names.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a brotherly relationship between the two of us where we know each other well enough that, yeah, sometimes we do get mad at each other personally, but we're always friends at the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here. Feel free to jump in on the conversation. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now is time for the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good Tuesday morning. It is Tuesday, 24 and partly cloudy in Denver, 27 in the Springs, expecting highs in the low 50s today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, former Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson speaking out regarding his mention in the Epstein files.
Emails released by the U.S. Justice Department Friday night suggest Wilson once considered purchasing one of Jeffrey Epstein's private planes. Wilson took to social media Sunday night writing, quote, "Nope, absolutely not. Not today, Satan." Wilson added that some random plane broker tried to sell him a plane and that he had no idea whose plane it was and he never bought it. He also says he never met or talked to Epstein. I'm Michael Kastner.
The horrific stories continue to be exposed after the release of the Epstein files, but you won't hear about them in the mainstream media. I like to remember what Charlie said a few months ago before he was taken out. To me, this is the most profound statement.
This movement is about the citizens versus the oligarchs. This movement is about we the people versus the ruling class. This movement is about America versus the globalists. This movement is about all of us against them.
So always think about that when you think about the Epstein files. The defense team for Tyler Robinson, accused of murdering Charlie, says they don't want a trial in secret, but they do want some documents kept private. He's back in court today. They're especially concerned about mentions or motions, that is, that they make before the court. Robinson's defense lawyers argue the news media is not looking to inform the public, but to sensationalize the case for profit. He's seeking to have the Utah County Attorney's Office disqualified from the case. A Springs police officer is recovering, and a suspect is in critical condition after a shooting Monday northeast of Memorial Park. Caitlin Ford says says authorities were in the area conducting a separate operation when it all happened.
CSPD officers attempted to contact an unknown male who was unrelated to the operation and acting suspiciously. The male fled from officers and then produced a handgun. The male then shot at officers, striking one of them.
That officer was hospitalized with serious injuries, but is expected to be released soon. Once again, the suspect remains in critical condition. Federal immigration agents in Minneapolis will start wearing body cams. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem took to X on Monday, saying it'll also be expanded nationwide. The House Rules Committee is paving the way for a vote today on bringing the partial government shutdown to an end. 47 is welcoming the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, to the White House today. The president said he'll discuss the flow of drugs coming from the region. The FBI has joined the investigation into the disappearance of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's mother. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie was reported missing on Sunday outside Tucson in Pima County, and the county sheriff, Chris Nano, says her home is now a crime scene. He told reporters investigators believe she was taken from the home against her will. The Red Wings shut out the Avalanche last night 2-0, and the Nuggets in Detroit tonight to take on the Pistons. Tip-off at 5 o'clock. And finally this morning, I decided to start a movement, and it's called the 30-minute walk across America. If you're like me and you don't want to watch either halftime show during the Super Bowl, go outside and take a 30-minute walk, take photos, get some exercise, be with your family, and then come back home for the second half. Join me, won't you? The walk across America. 27 in the Springs, 24 in Denver. You're waking up with Jeff and Bill. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area calls for dry, cool wintertime conditions tonight, lows near 30. A weak cold front and small disturbance moved through the area late this Tuesday. Beforehand, low 50s for highs, few rain and snow showers late in the day, a touch of light snow. Tuesday evening and night, trace to an inch possible, mid-20s for lows, near 50, partly cloudy Wednesday, mild and dry. Thursday through the weekend, highs in the 60s, lows near 30. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, now syndicated from Denver to Colorado Springs as well. Glad to have a brand new audience with us. AM 1460, FM 101, The Answer in Colorado Springs. Feel free to jump in and be a part of the conversation at 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Keplis Law text line 720-819-5115. Phone line still hot from the previous conversation. Yeah, Grammys didn't expose ICE, Daily Wire writing. It exposed Hollywood hypocrisy. Here's Billie Eilish.
No one is illegal on stolen
KUS
land.
forecast.
And yeah, it's just really hard to know what to say and what to do right now. And I feel really hopeful in this room, and I feel like we just need to keep fighting and speaking up and protesting, and our voices really do matter, and the people matter. And I say sorry.
She says something there we can't repeat on the radio, but
no.
Billie Eilish living behind big walls, secluded, big, beautiful homes, $14 million beachside residence in Malibu, security guards protecting her. Is she just being a big old hypocrite? I mean, that's what Trump's trying to do with border security and ICE, is protect the average person from bad people. And Billie Eilish does that, but she's criticizing Trump for doing it to average people like us, trying to keep our community safe. Let's go to the phone lines. Joe in Arvada, the Hollywood elite, just a bunch of big old hypocrites, Joe.
Well, of course, but hi, Jeff, Billy.
Hey,
I've got a take on her. Well, I'll just tell you, I think we should build an ICE facility right on her territory, right?
Stolen land, we're just going to take it.
We can all have communion over at Billie Eilish's house. Actually, I wanted to say something about communion because it just rubbed me the wrong way. God is no respecter of persons. However, we shouldn't take communion in an unworthy fashion.
Correct. I agree with you on that.
If a pastor explains this to anyone who's willing to, for instance, say the Lord's Prayer, and then forgive anyone in their unforgiveness list, and ask for forgiveness, then they're able to take communion in a worthy fashion. There is, some churches have closed communion where they'd rather not deal with, all of these issues, and they'll just close it off to members that are assumed to be in right standing with God. So anyway, that is biblical, and there are scriptures about taking communion in an unworthy fashion.
Yep, you're exactly right on that. But I think Gary was pointing out it is intriguing that Roman Catholics are very strict as to whom can take communion, but seem to be very permissive as to which borders you need to abide by.
True. I think most Roman Catholics would say that if you want to become a Roman Catholic, go through membership and then take communion, they'd allow it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So okay. The Savannah Guthrie issue to me is fairly obvious. Well, if you're going to assess a percentage here, just look at the number of human smuggling cases they've had in the past. It's very close to the border. There have been many, many cases where, as Jeff says, the cartels come in, or these bad hombres, and they will, take the person for a ransom, or they will use the facility, the house, as their holding area while they do everything. And a lot of times, I think the person that's being held if she mentioned something about, her daughter being Savannah Guthrie, that might be part of it too. But I think that the odds are it's probably a human smuggling case by an illegal alien. And the numbers will bear me out, except you can't get numbers in Tucson because they don't want to reveal it. They're very much like Aurora, a sanctuary city. They're not in a state that's supposedly a sanctuary state, California or Colorado, but Tucson is definitely opposed to helping ICE. And so what happens is you get this plethora of illegals that come in because they know they cater to them. And then also the bad hombres come because they're not going to be hassled by ICE or the police. And so they have to have a form of raising money, especially in these times where it's not as easy to smuggle things across the border. So I think the odds are this is a human smuggling case.
The thing is, why take her, though? What do you think could be the reason to grab her for human smuggling? I mean, are they trying to use her house as because they're obviously not smuggling her, but what would be the reason to grab her for human smuggling?
Well, there's a good chance that they are, but because of what happens a lot of times is these bad hombres will take a human being and hold them for ransom. They do have sophisticated methods of getting monies either wired to them or sent to them, and then
why not take her? Why not take car keys and wallet then? And what I'm saying is, if someone kidnapped someone in your family and then asked for proof, my guess is that unless we're playing mob games here, that we're going to send them pieces of body parts that would try to verify that I have your family member based on either car keys or something contained in the wallet. That's why those personal effects being left behind, that just causes a big question mark in my head on the kidnapping side of things. But again, I have not participated nor planned a kidnapping, so I could be doing this incorrectly. I don't know.
Well, a lot of times these smuggling operations, they have the person contact family. In other words, they're not worried about whether you have your ID or they understand they're not going to go use your credit card.
I do think, though, in today's world, and I don't know if Savannah's smart enough, though, but the first thing is if someone was using and calling me and it sounded like someone's voice, the first thing I would do is try to verify it's not AI. So I would be looking for, again, other real-world concrete confirmations. And that's the thing, it's now we're in the advent of AI.
Point,
yeah.
I think you're right. At this point, though, it's probably grim. It's been 48 hours. That's usually, 24 hours?
Yeah.
I'm just using
now,
TV
Joe,
statistics.
I want to go back a little bit to Billie Eilish's statement. Now, do you feel that she is making a large political statement, or is this just another very rich person saying something in which they're out of touch?
Oh, absolutely. Billie Eilish obviously hasn't had her property invaded. She hasn't had a family member, wrecked with an illegal. Personally, I've had family members that have had illegals run into the back of them, get out of the car, leave the car there. The police even know who it is, won't arrest them.
Yeah,
because there's just no repercussions.
I understand what you're saying, but I kind of come to the conclusion that I think that you are misinterpreting her statement, because the statement that she's making, I'm hearing the idea of squatters, is the idea that if a squatter comes into your home and you're saying, that someone that can come over and take over an area then gets to decide who is legal and illegal. She's pointing out just the core hypocrisy inside the statement. I don't think she's advocating for open borders or saying anybody can break into my house. I don't think she's saying that she doesn't believe in property rights or anything like that. I think that what she's doing in that statement, and again, it is trite and shallow, but she's pointing out the idea that once a land is taken, however that is taken, that group of people then decide who is legal and illegal. I think she's just pointing out that hypocrisy. Like if we went and did a full-on invasion with Trump in Venezuela and took it over, we then would now decide who's legal and illegal in Venezuela.
Well, so I think you're on to the indoctrination that's going on in Billie Eilish, but I think it's just a repeated trope that is meaningless. I mean, we should all have given our property back to the Indians. Now we should go to the reservations. Everybody should turn over the keys to their car to the Sioux, or it's just absurd, and it's just like reparations. Reparations is an absurd. You're 10 generations down. Some of these people, and they're looking for $4 million. Well, I don't buy it, and the indoctrination method is what Billie Eilish is just repeating what she's been told by over and over, and it makes sense to her because the liberal mind is a virus and everyone knows it.
I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah,
Joan, I appreciate it, and I want to just point out something to everybody that says this is that horrible indoctrination and this is why those government schools and everything else. Billie Eilish was homeschooled. She's a homeschooler.
Yeah, I mean, so are you saying that she would be smarter if she was in government-run schools?
No, what I'm saying is this. What I'm saying is that, and I've seen on the text message and what Joe was saying there, that it is the system. It is the larger public school system that has indoctrinated her is where they're going with that. And she's not in the government-run and public school system.
I didn't hear Joe say that the schools indoctrinated her.
I know.
But, I mean,
that's
so
the issue.
Billie
Eilish
Eilish and the other ones wearing Ice Out buttons, claiming that no one is illegal on stolen land. Just a reminder that if you stepped a foot on their property, that they're going to bring the full weight of every security police force they can down on you to protect themselves. But when Donald Trump seeks to protect the rest of us by using border enforcement and ICE, then we're being fascist, we're being vicious, we're being mean. No, they are just being hypocritical. All right, let's talk the gun room. There are some businesses in Colorado that aren't just stores, they're institutions. The gun room in Lakewood is one of them. They've been serving Denver since 1982. And when you step inside, you immediately know this isn't a big box operation. It's real. Wood counters, knowledgeable people, a shop built on experience, responsibility, and respect for the Second Amendment. I love everything about this store. The gun room buys, sells, and consigns everything from antique firearms to modern tactical and hunting rifles. They even help families navigate gun collections after losing a loved one, something that requires trust and integrity. Wayne's the owner, and I promise he'll take great care of you. With over 1,000 firearms in stock, inventory changes every day and is the place to shop, especially with new restrictive laws coming down the road. Support a local, family-owned Colorado business. Support freedom. Visit denvergunroom.com or call 303-237-1300. 303-237-1300, denvergunroom.com. That's denvergunroom.com. We'll get to the phone lines. Feel free to jump in on the conversation. The phone line is 303-696-1971. Text us at 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS, and The Answer. FM 101.1 and 1460 AM in Colorado Springs.
All along the Front Range, this is The Jeff and Bill Show. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Phone lines hot, text messages hot as we dive into the Grammys, Billie Eilish, and a good article from the Daily Wire. The Grammys didn't expose ICE, it exposed Hollywood's hypocrisy. The 2026 Grammy Awards were supposed to celebrate music. Instead, they became another stage for Hollywood's favorite performance, moral superiority without consequences. This year, celebrities like Billie Eilish and Teddy Swims, Justin Bieber donned ice-out pins and used their acceptance speeches to condemn immigration and customs enforcement and lecture Americans about the justice, compassion, and humanity. From their gilded seats inside Crypto.com arena, they urged unity and resistance, all while remaining safely isolated from the real-world consequences of the policies they champion. This is the part no one on that stage ever acknowledges. The celebrities grandstanding about immigration do not live in border communities. They don't compete for jobs with illegal labor. They do not deal with overwhelmed schools, strained hospitals, or rising crime. They don't have to explain to grieving families why their loved ones died because of basic immigration enforcement was treated as immoral. Where was the outrage from Hollywood when Laken Riley was murdered by an illegal immigrant? Where were the pins, the speeches, standing ovations? Nope, just silence. Because acknowledging victims like her would complicate the narrative. Hollywood prefers slogans over substance. When Billie Eilish declared that no one is illegal on stolen land, critics pointed out the obvious contradiction. She lives in a multi-million-dollar estate guarded by private security. If ownership is illegitimate, why is she not handing over the keys? Virtue is easy when it costs nothing. They do the same thing when it comes to family structure. Social conservatives have pointed this out for years, that they do. Even Ben Sass in his book talked about this. They talk left, walk right, which means they'll talk about we need to free ourselves from the restrictive bonds of traditional marriage and those types of things. Meanwhile, if you actually look at many of the most elite, not necessarily Hollywood, because they live some weird lives themselves there, but when you look at the most elite in this country, they tend to live rather social conservative lives. They recognize the importance of a stable home life, especially for kids that they're going to raise. So just another example of the elite talking left, walking right. Let's go to the phone lines. Fred, good morning. Fred, you're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning, Jeff, and again, morning, Bill.
Morning.
You know, I'd like to talk a little bit about this myth of the stolen lands. Maybe these people ought to do a little reading. If they ever understood that Indians stole land from each other. And let me give you a quick quote out of a book that I read, if I could. It says, but the Sioux' vicious raids on their Algonquin neighbors to the north and east, and the sheer joy the Sioux took in tearing their enemies' limbs from limb with rocks, clubs, sharpened sticks, and flint knives. These Indians have been chasing each other off the land. Another good example is the Comanches. They started in the Wind River country of Wyoming, ended up in Oklahoma and Texas, and drove the Apaches out of there. So this thing about, they all loved each other, this big kumbaya, it's a myth. And these people ought to understand, they stole the land from each other, and they killed each other, and they thought it was a big deal to kill their enemy. So I'm a little tired of this issue of, we stole their land.
Yeah, see, Fred, I see the point, and for me, I as I said earlier, the statement's trite and it's shallow, but it is pointing out somewhat of what you're talking about. When one Indian tribe would take over land from another, that tribe that was the conqueror would then decide who is, and I'm using this somewhat in air quotes, who is legal and illegal. That's the core of what that statement is about, that once someone takes control of something, they then get to decide. That's why it's nobody's illegal on stolen land. Again, I think it is very, very dumb. I don't like the statement, and I think it's incredibly shallow and doesn't prove the point those that use it are trying to make. I wish they could do it a different way, but I also don't see it as advocating for an open border.
Well, I'm not here about the borders issue. I'm here about destroying the myth about stealing land.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
You know, from the time.
Yeah, and Europe did it. Yeah.
From the time that the Mayflower landed at Plymouth Rock to today, They ought to read the history of these different people. And I won't go on and on. I think I've made my point, but I'd like to leave you with one last quote from W.C. Fields that I think is applicable.
Ooh, excellent.
And Fields said, "Horse sense is the thing a horse has which keeps it from betting on people."
Yes, I love that one. Thank you, Fred. That's fantastic.
To that point, though, I think there's something to recognize here that what Western civilization brought to with regards to property rights, and clear understanding of who owns the property, the minerals, the water, all that stuff, is the most clear delineation of fairness that world history ever saw. To Fred's point, you basically just clubbed other people prior to that, took their land. This notion of property rights and some system by which we delineate who owns that and who has rights to develop that came with Western civilization, should be appreciated. All right, let's continue. Let's get to Jim here in just a second. But first, I want to talk about advanced hair restoration. For many of us, it's happening. Your hair is thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity is lost altogether. Maybe you're a boxer who got hit and his toupee flew off in front of the whole world to see. I got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have, but what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair's state-of-the-art facilities to their world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe your hair will regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com. All right, Jim, Denver. Good morning, Jim. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Something that bothers me, I think it's the administration. I think they try to give the impression that all they're getting rid of is the worst of the worst, and that's what they're going after. Whereas every statistic I've looked at shows anywhere, but the overwhelming majority of the people that they're deporting have no criminal and no violent record whatsoever. I mean, anywhere from 70 to 95%. So I mean, and I think that's what we're arguing about between conservatives and liberals. Liberals actually, Jeff, I agree. We didn't like the border being open. We didn't like people coming in, and we are actually. I'm glad anyway that Trump has shut down that border, and now we have an orderly process. I think he deserves credit for that. But I think what liberals want. They don't want the mass deportation of people that have lived here for a long time and held down jobs and have lived peaceably and according to our laws. And I think Trump wants them all out, and he's sending them all out.
Jim, how is that not de facto amnesty?
Hey, I think it's humanity. I think it's just respecting people that were looking for a better life, just like our grandparents were. They can't, we played a winky game with these poor people for 50 years, the Republicans and the Democrats. The Republicans wanted the cheap labor, and the Democrats wanted the sons of these people to become citizens and typically vote for Democrats. So for 50 years, we let these people in playing the winky game, and we left them alone. And they established roots and families here, and now we're saying, oh, you got to go. No, that's not right. That's not Christian. That's not fair.
I just disagree with that, because we did that again in the 80s with Ronald Reagan, and the message that it sent was just get here. Just get here, keep your head down, be quiet, just get here, and then eventually they'll allow you to stay here, and your kids can become American residents. I don't think that's fair to American people. I don't think it's fair to the people that are doing it the right way and going through the whole process and spending years. It cuts in front of them. That's not Christian in my mind. And then you had all the other problems with the people coming across the border. They're not all good people. And we have to deal with the crime. We have to deal with the fact that it is a strain on our society, with the cost to educate them, the cost to provide health care for them. We're a country that's in debt. So, I feel like Trump sent a very clear, compassionate message. Go home. By the way, here's $2,500. By the way, here's a plane ticket. Go home. Do it the right way. They didn't. They continue to break our laws. What do you do with people like that?
We invited them to break our laws, and we let them put down roots here, and there are a ton of them. They only speak English. They don't speak Spanish. They've gone to our schools. They're looking for jobs. They're hard workers. They're the ones that do the work that most of the established white people, and I'm one of them, don't want to do. I don't want to work on a roof. I don't want to pick grapes. I don't want to be a short order cook in McDonald's. We need those people. We need those jobs, and they're just great family people. And they've invested their whole lives here, and they know nothing. A lot of them know nothing about Mexico or Central America. These kids, they haven't been back there, and we're just going to kick them out.
Jim, what do you do with the people that did it the right way, got in line, and are waiting their turn? What about fairness to them?
Yeah, those are all more well-to-do people, Jeff. It costs money. You have to get lawyers. You have to spend years. If you're just going to be dig ditches. Those people that are willing to dig ditches and pick grapes, they don't have lawyers. They don't have the literate smarts to fill out all the bureaucracy and jump through all the hoops and wait for years to become a short order cook. But we need them here, and we need them to do that work, and we've invited them in.
Jim, I think there's an element of kind of bleeding heart, but I think there's also an element of what you're saying that just is degrading to those people. It excuses them for not following the rules, that for some reason they're not smart enough, they don't have the capacity to be able to follow the rules, and then it puts them into slave labor, that they're the ones digging the ditches and picking the fruit and all that stuff, and it reeks of second-class citizenship from my perspective. Jim, I appreciate the call. All right, phone lines are open. Jump right in. They're hot. If you want to follow up on the conversation, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Campos Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS, and 101 FM, 1460 AM. The Answer in Colorado Springs, all along the Front Range. This is The Jeff and Bill Show.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver. And a big welcome to our listeners, AM 1460 and FM 101, The Answer in Colorado Springs, all along the Front Range. This is the Jeff and Bill Show. All right, phone lines jam-packed hot on immigration, as it's one of the top issues in Colorado. What kicked us all off was the Grammys and Billie Eilish saying nobody is illegal on stolen land and wearing a bunch of ice out pins and all this stuff. They're just a bunch of hypocrites because they live behind borders themselves and locked doors and security. And you step a foot on there, and law enforcement's going to do something about you. Meanwhile, they're weak on border security and ICE enforcement because it doesn't actually affect their lives. So they get to look, this is like classic progressive virtue signaling, they get to look compassionate while the rest of us suffer. Let's go to the phone lines. Dean in Denver. Good morning, Dean. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hi, thanks. Okay, so last time we talked, I left out my most important points here. Jeff, and this is directed towards you. Again, I'm as conservative as you are. What I want to say, though, is you keep using this de facto amnesty thing, and here's what I want to say. It's how we deal with it this time. To what, 1 million people or so? But the problem was he did not get his closed border. This time things will be different. This time with a completely closed and sealed border, okay? Things will be different. This is the way the United States finally says, look, we are done with this problem. We are finished with illegal immigration, okay? Right. For 50 years, we have done everything for these people. We give their children citizenship. We give them education. We give them health care. We let them buy homes. We give them driver's license. We have welcomed them here with open arms for 50 years. We cannot just tell them all to leave. So this time, with the border completely sealed and illegal immigration completely stopped, this time we deal with this in an intelligent manner, and we decide who needs to go, and we decide for the ones who have been here working and living their lives like the rest of us, following the law, living decent lives, we extend a hand to them, and we offer them some type of pathway.
Nope.
Okay, but the difference this time is the border is closed.
No, Dean, we are a nation of laws. We're a nation of culture. We are the United States of America. You broke the law. The very first act you did coming into this country was break our laws. No, we did not invite them there. They knew it was illegal back then. We had an entire pathway they could have followed. They didn't do it. Their first act was to break our laws. They are not Americans. It's time for them to go. And Trump was very compassionate. He bought them a plane ticket. He gave them $2,500. He gave them plenty of notice. They're refusing to go. They're continuing to use our services. Law and order and justice has returned. It's the American way. This is not just America. You can't do this in any other country out there. You can't do this in France. You can't do this in England. You can't just show up and demand all their services.
I agree with everything you just said.
We were too compassionate. And now law and order and justice has been returned. Dean, I appreciate the call. We just got so many we got to get to here, which is great. All right, Mark, Colorado Springs. Good morning, Mark. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning. You know, this argument that jobs Americans won't do, I really hate it. Just because it's Americans won't do it for the price that someone's willing to pay for them. And that's because the wages get depressed by somebody in a compromising position. That you keep your head down and you be a good boy, and someday you'll be a citizen. That's a horrible formula. It's a disaster, and that's what we're living with.
Now, Mark, but what do we do with the millions and millions of people that are here? How do we deal with them? What do we do about the immigration issue? And And I understand the idea that we've told them kind of keep your head down, be quiet, and we will look the other way because we, oddly enough, during Trump's immigration enforcement, we are not seeing anything focused on the employer. And, if we talk about the idea of the free market system inside of supply side economics, if you don't have a supply of jobs, doesn't matter how many people come here. So there is more than just one piece to the puzzle in this one. But what do you think we should do, Mark, with the people that are here already? Do you like what Trump is doing? Should we be concentrating on the worst of the worst, as he had said during the campaign? What critique do you have of him so far? Do you think it's going wonderfully?
I think it's going well. I think everybody that has an order of deportation from an administrative law judge, not a judicial warrant or any of that, because that's not the way the system works, they should be deported. And I'm telling you, I suffered through it. My wife was deported, and it was we were married and she got deported, and that's the way it is. And we were able to make things right. But
should some of these people that are here illegally, should they be able to pay for a green card, like a certain amount of money? Well, Trump has floated the idea of $1 million green card, a gold card, that would allow wealthy people to buy their way to the front of the line. Do you support that?
I think it's something that's already in place, but I don't support it. No, I think you have to wait your you have first come, first served basis, and you get to present yourself and present your case, and that's where it is. But it's like slavery now. I mean, if you can say, "Oh, you better be quiet, or else you'll get deported," that's no system. And if you walk the tightrope for 15 years or 10 years or 20 years or whatever, then someday you'll get rewarded. That's slavery.
Well, I see yes and I see no on that one. I mean, I understand what you're saying based on being stuck as far as the economics, and I got to at least say something what Mary was talking about, that a lot of these illegal immigrants came in and replaced jobs that were on the lower rungs of society for decades, and that included a lot of other minorities, including black people. So there were competition for jobs with those illegal immigrants, and I understand the idea of that you're saying, Mark, that we need to move them all out. But do you understand that there are people, and I would include myself in that looked to Donald Trump when he said get the worst of the worst out, and that's what we thought he was going to focus on. And those would be the gang members, the rapists. And where I have a little bit of a disconnect is I hear from people, and you may be one of them, that support the current immigration process and procedures that's going on. And then when it's brought up that the vast majority of the people that are being detained and deported don't have any other criminal conviction or case outside of the original sin of crossing the border, then it's always, but don't you know about all the murderers and rapists? Why are you protecting the people that are here to violate us as a society, when that's not what we're seeing, those being deported? Do you understand why there's a portion of our country that is mad that we are going after the person that is working at the gardening store, or the person that is mowing our lawn, or working in the hotel, rather than the people that we were told to be afraid of, like the Trinidad gangs that were infiltrating buildings here in Aurora?
Well, that's I like the idea of going after the worst of the worst, but the problem is you just have to go after everyone, because if you decide that somebody has discretion to look the other way, this way or that way, or they can hand out favors, then inevitably that's going to lead to corruption. So you can't hand out all this discretion. You just simply have to enforce the law and deport those who you come in contact with that have an order of deportation.
I think we enforce the law, and thanks for the call, Mark, on discretion a lot of times. Police officers every day have to make discretionary decisions on who may or may not be committing a crime. The idea being watching speeders run down 225.
Yeah, Mark, I appreciate the call, but Bill, Denver and Colorado are specifically blocking ICE enforcement from criminals. They're preventing local law enforcement from coordinating. So if we want to get the worst of the worst out, why are we preventing that type of coordination between local and federal enforcement? All right, we'll continue. You're listening to News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now AM 1460 and FM 101, The Answer in Colorado Springs. We'll be right back.